got it.
All right, Perry, we got a couple questions here today. I actually have I've got some queued up for next week too, just because we're starting to get a few questions. You'll like the first one because this is not what you hear all the time. I'm moving from the East Coast to Austin in October. I'd like to live downtown as I'm used to living in an urban environment. I looked online and didn't see many options for renting until I find the right place. Any suggestions?
Well, let's talk about that. So there's two primary issues in downtown market other than availability. Number one is size and scope and availability of the type of product you want. If you're looking for a one-bedroom, we can find them. If you're looking for a two-bedroom, it's just a little harder. If you're looking for a three-bedroom, they don't make those. In the little neighborhoods that surround it, they don't have very many of those either because they're mostly houses that were built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and may or may not be updated. A typical one-bedroom, Carol, is going to be anywhere between $1,350 in Clarksville, which is going to be 2 blocks or 3 blocks west of downtown. That's probably the best deal. Or if you go to a new place, they're going to start around $1,650 for a one-bedroom now. That's up from $1,550 not 5 months ago. You're starting to see people who, in fact, these bigger companies like Gables, are actually offering you the best prices on 6-month leases, not 12-month leases, because they know they're going to get another price raise in the next time period. So if you're looking to acclimate to the area, you're looking to engage in some of the day-to-day, walk, hike, bike, trail, go shop, get into your system and your mode, you can do that for $1,300 to $1,650. If you go to some of the more premium places, a one-bedroom on the 12th floor of the Monarch looking at the Capitol, it's going to be $1,850. Whereas a two-bedroom at the Monarch with that same configuration is $3,200. Be ready for those types of prices.
So it could be a good news for Carol. She's probably coming from the East Coast where it's expensive too, but there are choices, and I guess my advice for Carol would be get with Perry. He's an expert in this stuff. He can definitely, and he's been handling this type of a requirement for other people. And anybody else listening to this podcast that's interested in essentially renting downtown before they buy. I know, Perry, you've helped a number of people with that, including the
VP of sales for W Hotel. I did the same thing for him.
Yeah, I know you did a big search, wide search, and you were able to finally find something, and it took some work. So Steve and Cindy wrote in that they're considering pulling their house off the market. I love this question, just as a precursor, because this happens seasonally every year. Considering pulling their home off the market now that school is almost started. We've talked with a realtor, and she's fine with that and suggested we can remarket in the spring. Is that what you recommend to your clients? We really don't want to wait to sell and buy a new place. So here's an interesting thing, and part of it I think is driven by the phenomenon of realtors in general, and I'll make a generalization. This is in Austin. I've seen this in every market across the country I've worked in. I think by the time they get to the early fall to mid-fall, we'll call it Halloween, they decide that they want to take time off, and one of the things that precludes them from taking time off as a real estate agent is listings and clients that are, anxious to sell and they're wanting to see activity. But if you look at the data, and here's what I want Steve and Cindy or anybody else to understand. In a market like Austin, there is usually a short drop in inventory, and it comes down in the late August to early September timeframe. It'll come down again in sort of waves monthly through October. And the real big drop that happens in inventory usually happens in November and December. But the more important question is, what happens with demand? We're not a snowbelt market. We're not dealing with inclement weather on average or temperature changes. And what was interesting is the inventory, Perry, drops much faster starting in August than demand does. So there's almost like a squeeze from the standpoint of inventory. We're already in a market where we only have 3 or 4 months of inventory on average. So what Steve and Cindy have to ask themselves is, are we okay being on the market? We may have a fewer number of choices to pick, but if they can see houses that they would want to purchase, there are a lot of homes that sell between September 1st and December 1st. Because everybody who's coming in and relocating has got to buy a home And a lot of them want to be in by January 1st when they're looking in October through December. And
this big move-in weekend is Thanksgiving weekend, because you can still spend Thanksgiving Day with friends and family and spend the next 3 days moving into your house. I see it all the time.
absolutely. And some of the biggest months in the real estate business are in November. So don't get confused. I'm not suggesting that their agent is telling them that for that reason, but a lot of agents just are like, oh, you know what, let's just try and remarket in the spring. And it can be a dangerous thing for the following reason. Now let's talk about the spring market. It's March. People have mulched their yard, they've planted things, they've watered, their properties look perfect. Well, in come 3,000 new listings. And literally, you can see in a 45-day period, sometimes 3,000 to 4,000 new listings come on the market. And it could take demand up to 90 days to catch up with that. We get the opposite effect starting in late February and March in Austin. So what Steve and Cindy or any other seller need to consider is, if I can afford to be on the market from the standpoint of inconvenience, I may get better dynamics in terms of selling. In other words, an inventory squeeze in the early fall and have more motivated buyers that have to buy, versus now I'm on with 3,000 new listings in February or March, and demand may not catch up. You could very well be on the market for a longer period of time if you do the strategy of pull it off in the early fall and put it back on in the spring when everybody else comes on, because you're dealing with, from a supply and demand standpoint, the wrong dynamics. They're going the wrong way. It's like in the normal business world, Perry, if we said, okay, that our competitors are going to go away, but we still have the same or higher proportion of buyers, or we can go on the market when our competitors are going to be dumping inventory in the market, but the demand isn't there. It'd be a pretty easy business decision, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But in the real estate business, it baffles me that they keep giving the advice to do the opposite of that. So it's up to Steve and Cindy to finally decide what they want to do. But certainly, plenty of homes sell, like you said, and people are moving in over the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, that's a great time to do it.
Absolutely. I'm going to wrap up here. Any questions for us can be sent to info@AustinTexasRealEstateToday.com. Perry and I will get them queued up and talk about them in the next episode. Perry, number 6 is in the can, so to speak. It'll be up and promoted. Anybody that has questions, again, can send them to info@AustinTexasRealEstateToday. And I know you've got a bunch of closings coming up this week, Perry. You need to go out there and go knock it down, and I'm going to get to a client meeting here in a few minutes. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week for episode 7.
Thank you.